Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen. We're so glad that you're joining us for our special two-part edition for October for Domestic Violence Month. This guest is undercover. We're calling her our special guest because her situation is still unfolding and it's still ongoing. She's going to talk to us briefly about situations that happened to her and how she escaped a toxic marriage and wound up in a shelter. And a lot of tips and a lot of things that people don't know. So this is real life things that happen every day. This is just to bring awareness to other people and help those in need and help others that may have questions, and this show how strong she is and the courage that she has to join us. So again, thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. Please like and share our podcast. And remember, it's posted bi-weekly on all platforms. We would love to have you join us, like and share and subscribe. Also, if you would like to be a guest for the 2026 upcoming year, we were glad to have you in person or on Zoom anywhere in the country at a time that meets your needs. So thank you so much for your time and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen, and we are so glad that you are here today joining us. Today, I have a special guest who is going to join us and share a little bit about a topic that's big in today's society. It's about abuse within the home, within the family, and within work, anywhere. So it's a really high, special topic. That's why she's here as a special guest. So I'm going to ask, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do today to help others?
Hi, Colleen. Thank you for having me discussing this important topic. Who I am, I would say I'm a Hispanic woman of faith that tried to be the best version of herself and live by purpose. I gave birth to my two favorite people and have others that I love as my own, as they are the children of my fiance. I have years of experience in HR and project management for a great company, but more recently in my second and third shift of the day, I have been building a real estate investment business that will provide co-living spaces for DV survivors as they transition from surviving to overcoming. And those efforts are deeply informed by my experiences. I'm intentional about nurturing independence, dignity, restoration, not only for them, but actually also still for myself, as I think it's a journey that will never end.
Absolutely. And at this point in your life, how did you decide that you wanted to operate co-living for these types of survivors? Because there's all types of co-living, it could be for college students, it could be for vets, it could be for single working people, traveling nurses. How did you decide that this was the line of co-living homes that you wanted to operate?
It has been an interesting journey, actually, because it didn't start that long ago. About a year ago, the investment that I have done is more as house hacking. So I house hacked my previous home. I doing it with my second home, and then I did a rent to own when I moved from one to the other. That was it. But of course, I had some equity from selling the first one. And my current fiance, boyfriend at the time, he was one of the first ones who told me, like, hey, how about you leverage that money to do some investment? I hope you're not putting it back in the mortgage because you're not really doing that much. And then shortly after that, I have a sister of another mother. She has been one of my angels in this journey. She has investment experience, but wants to go on her own. And she proposed, hey, how about we do something together? And she's one of those individuals that I will go to hell and come back for her. I trust 100%. And I think those two comments, those were seeds in my mind. So that's when I started learning about REI. Not really knowing at that point what I was going to do. I was just curious. But I put it in prayer because I something that it's very important for me is that everything that I do, it needs to have a purpose, right? I don't want to make money just for the sake of it. Let's say it like that. And I heard about co-living, and I was like, that's interesting. Let me learn more. So honestly, one thing led to the other. And I have to say that the pieces of the puzzle have been coming to me at the right time. And it was almost like I started seeing it. I continued researching. Of course, I have learned so much because of my own journey has been part of my healing. My counselor wanted the first instruction that the first homework I would say that she gave me was to actually read a psychology book related to the topic, which I hated, by the way, but it was so important because education, right? Education is power. I continued doing research and I learned that actually not having a safe place to go in that transition is one of the top, if not the top reason why victims go back. And I hated reading that, right? I felt it to the core. And I said, listen, if I have been so blessed, I have been able to say that today I'm not just a survivor, I'm an overcomer. And I have the capability, the resources to leave a mark in this world. That's it. That's the place. That's my target. Women like me that are broken today in a million pieces, but I can be that person that they can look at and say, I can do it too.
Wow, that's really powerful. hmm So, um, you are a survivor, as you said, which is amazing, that you're able to help people and speak out. So, if you could give me some insight of how a lot of people don't understand, there's all different types of abuse that people can have. And I feel like
Yes.
a lot of times people, just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean somebody's not dealing with it or feeling with it.
Mm,
How would you say that
yeah.
emotional abuse can affect somebody, not only their mind, but their body as a whole?
In every area of their life. Absolutely. You're on point. And honestly, I think I can start answering that question in so many ways, right? But I think I would like to start with the end. When you actually see the abuse, when it's visible, when it's physical, it's because it has been going on for so long at that point. And it all started mentally and emotionally. If you think about it, our bodies were made in such a way that we react whenever we're in danger, let it be real danger or something that we think it's dangerous, we will react, right? Even if it's a shadow, maybe it's nothing, but we react. It's just automatic. And how could we explain that someone will let another person abuse them physically? If we go to how we were naturally made, right? It doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. Because that means that that system was broken long ago. And it starts piece by piece, emotionally and mentally. I will never forget. Honestly, I cannot recall how the book is called, but I will never forget the portrait. You would see in the portrait, in the cover, I should say, the a part of the face of a woman, and it was it looked like it was ripped, like when you ripped a paper, but you could still see the face of the woman, and then you would see raindrops. And it was for me very interesting to read the reflection of the author to see just to understand how they came up with the cover. And she explained that that's exactly how abuse starts. It's not a storm, because of course you will notice the storm. You know that it's coming, right? Whenever Floridians are very used to hurricanes, you get ready and you know what to do, and you go to a safe place. But whenever it's just raindrops, that's exactly what he's saying. Oh, it's raindrops, right? And in every cycle, but abuse goes in cycles, and in every cycle, they break a little bit of you, and they say sorry and the love bombing and all of the things. But some people don't understand that that's exactly when abuse starts, when they start love bombing you and they say sorry, because that's when they are getting ready for the next abuse, or the next event. And in that cycle, they keep breaking a little bit, and then a little bit more, until you don't realize what you're even living, what you're even experiencing. That's part of the gaslighting as well.
So it's basically all about some type of control. They give a little bit and then they take a little bit back.
Power and control, but little by little, so you don't realize it, right? Because I even
Yeah.
married my abuser. I had not one, two kids with my abuser, and at the moment when I learned that I was actually being abused, I was shocked. I remember the exact moment when I learned that I was being abused. I remember the before and the after of that specific event. In the before, I started having like those little subtle triggers, right? That I couldn't understand. Like, why? Why am I, when these happen, why am I feeling this way? But there were some triggers until I had this conversation. It was short conversation. I will share it in a moment. But then after that, I continued searching for more information, trying to process. And it was basically validating that, oh my God, yes, this is exactly what I'm living. So that moment specifically was a short conversation with an old friend. And she, w- w- it was an old friend. We lost connection, except for social media. And I was seeing that, oh, I'm seeing only her and the kids in the pictures. So, and there were other things that I could relate to, and I was like, I think I want to talk with this person. So when I plan to talk with this person, and I say plan intentionally because it with the power and the control was so high that I had to come up with fake meetings to let him know I need to go to the room to have this work meeting. Because he was not working. I was the head of households and all of the things. So I was the slave. When I had that conversation, she said, I left my husband, or my ex-husband at the time, because he abused me. And that word, dude, we kept the conversation going, but that word, it was like a hammer in my head. And I don't remember exactly why, but I went back to that and I said, you know what? I cannot say that he abuses me. And that's exactly when she stopped me in my tracks. She was like, no, no, no. Let's define what abuse is. Abuse is everything that another person does to you that they know you don't like and still do it. And I felt like my heart dropped. Um, that was the moment.
Ah. So this was somebody that noticed it and tried to help you. Is that the stopping
Oh,
point, you think?
hmm.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if she noticed it before
Hmm.
the conversation. That's a good question. Because it was so subtle. A lot of people didn't. After I decided to escape, and people started learning about it because of, and not because of me, because of him. He started his smear campaign, right, calling everybody and playing the victim and this whole thing. But the situation here, I think once you're a survivor, you can catch things like this, right? So in my heart, I have never asked her actually. I should ask her. But in my heart, I feel that she may have heard something, maybe the tone, maybe a word, but I think she caught it. And that may be why she said it like that. Of course, she didn't want to say you're being abused, of course, but she was also speaking from her experience, and I appreciate it, right? She was speaking from her heart, but that's exactly what I needed. I think nobody can tell you I know what you're experiencing than someone that has actually experienced it, right? And that has so much power. And that's one
Hmm.
of the reasons why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. To help others. Because there's a lot of people that what you said, just whatever somebody does to you that they know you don't like, but they keep doing that. I don't think
Mm,
I've ever heard that. I feel like that's hits a lot of people. Because it's just so right. Like, if you know I don't like that, why would you keep doing that to me?
exactly.
Or keep saying that? Really. Were there any coping mechanisms that you think you were using during this time, that whether they were unhealthy or healthy, that you realize now that you were doing to help yourself maybe get through it or ignore what was happening?
During the abuse or after I left?
During it.
Huh. I think at some point I just disassociated myself. Um, it was. I'll share an example of something that tells me that that's probably what I did. And I will keep saying probably because there's so many things that are a blur, right? And the gaslight is so terrible that sometimes you think you're experiencing something, but you don't really know, right? It's a blur. But going back to the event that I was going to share, once I escaped, I got my injunction pretty quickly. I stayed in a shelter overnight with my kids. Got the injunction on the second day for 4 years. Actually, it was granted for 4 years. So just so you know, the average is 6 months to a year. Mine was for four. And after that, I stayed with an uncle and aunt that lived close by. By the way, the reason why I didn't stay with them, it's because he knew where they lived, so I was advised to go to the shelter. Sharing that just in case someone is hearing and is in a similar situation, if the abuser knows where your family or those that you know live, please don't go there. Please go to a shelter, a safe place, until you have the safety net that will protect you. But going back to my story, I spent a few days, probably about, let's say, 3 weeks to 3 to 4 weeks, with someone, a family member. My parents flew in, or when they were not here, I was with uncle, aunts, cousins, etc. But once I found myself alone, if I was by myself, I felt I fell to the ground. And I felt this need of crying out loud. I didn't cry actually in the whole process of just researching, getting ready, going to the shelter, blah, blah, blah. Nothing, not one tear. But at that point, I was like, okay, now it was almost like, now I can let it out. Not one, no, I couldn't cry. Not one drop. It felt horrible. I, I was like, I want to let it out and I can't. Um, So I think that's an example of how much our bodies, I once heard, we're animals of habits. And I think that is so true, even with the bad and the ugly of life. We
Hmm.
can get to a point in which we get so used to it and disassociate.
That you
I think
become
that was me.
numb, like they say, you
Mm,
become numb and it just doesn't, like, you don't feel it anymore. You don't notice it. Which is really sad. Um, so what would you say was the turning point for you that led you to leave this situation?
In addition to that aha moment, thanks to my friend, I would say what gave me the courage was how what my kids were experimenting. I started seeing in my and I have an older girl and a younger boy, and I could see in them our relationship being reflected. And I'll explain. The way my abuser was treating our daughter was very different to how he was treating our son.
Mm.
And once my son, I mean, he was very little. I think he was not even 2 years old, but he had this toy spear, and he hit her sister really hard to the point that she cried. And guess who was scolded? It was her. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't do anything." Of course, you can say, you can think he's too little, but no, I think he could understand, right? And you can teach kids in a very young age to be kind and empathetic. And listen, you hurt her, you say, "I'm sorry," right? But he was like, nothing happened. Like, I didn't, and it's all okay because the one that got scolded was her. That broke my heart. And then in another moment, she was playing with him. As like he had these things in it covering his head because they were playing Ghost, and he started walking and hit a wall. And again, the one that got scolded was her. Now worse than the previous time. And those are the two times that I remember clearly, right? I'm sure that there were many others.
Mhm.
And there was this night when she asked me, "Mom, why can't you and I, why can't you and I live in a separate home? And then brother and dad live in another home." I could, I mean, it was, of course, in her words of a 7-year-old little girl, but I knew exactly what she meant. And I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done because of them.
Oh my God. Wow. That she knew that.
Mm,
So
yeah.
you mentioned that you left and you went to a shelter. How did you find out or know where you could go?
I I didn't know. I I was Listen, I one of the things that happened, I mentioned that there was like this turning point, right? This conversation, and then the before, and then the after, and in the before, there were things happening that were triggers and made me feel a certain way that I couldn't understand.
Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Um, Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronic. Goodbye.